The Galactic Council Hall was a place of wonder, huge, bright, and floating silently above the twin stars of Rathala. It was made of crystal and silver, shaped like a flower blooming in space. Inside, delegates from hundreds of species sat in curved rows, their eyes, antennae, or sensors all turned toward the center platform, and in the middle stood a human Captain Jace Marin. Dressed in his black Earth Fleet uniform, looked calm. His shoulders were square, his jaw tight, but his right hand was not empty. He held the thick, clawed hand of someone who looked very different from him. Her name was Princess Thelixa of Crother. She was tall, over 7 feet her skin, a mix of armor-like plates, black and deep red. Her arms were strong, her fingers ending in curved claws. Her face was long, insect-like, with small, dark eyes and 2 clicking mandibles near her mouth. Strange beauty, perhaps, but only to the Krosh. To others, she looked terrifying. Hall was full of whispers, and the laughter began. Low chuckles from the Oroxi, loud hoots from the Velkin, and the high-pitched buzz laughs of the Andari. Even the cold, blue-scaled Centauri blinked slowly in amusement. One delegate, the Andari ambassador, a slim creature with glowing blue skin and 6 fingers, stood and smirked. "So, Captain Marin," he said, voice smooth like oil, "is this what Earth calls love? Or is it military strategy?" More laughter. Jace didn't react. He simply lifted Thelexa's hand and kissed her armored knuckles. "I call it loyalty," he said. "I call it courage." The council chamber grew quiet for a moment. Jace stepped forward. "You sit here with your long lives, your grand ships, your endless rules." But when the Crother asked for peace only, Earth said yes. When they offered a marriage alliance, only I accepted. He looked around at the gathered species. "You mock what you don't understand? That's fine. But remember this. I didn't marry Thelexa because I had to. I chose her, and she chose me." Princess Thelexa clicked softly beside him. Was deep and smooth, almost musical. "Your laughter is weak," she said. "Your fear is loud, but my people know honor. Jace Marin has that more than any of you." The hall fell into silence again. But not everyone was impressed. The Velkin ambassador rolled his yellow eyes. The Oroxi delegate whispered something cruel to the Sarnath diplomat beside him. They thought it was all a joke. That this human was foolish, and the alien princess a beast. Only one being did not laugh. King Vor of Crother. Thelexa's father sat behind a thick curtain of armored guards. He was a mountain of chitin and muscle, with a voice like grinding stone. He had not spoken a word during the session. But now, as Jace and Thelixa turned to leave, Vor gave a slow nod, and a small, knowing smile. Suddenly, the lights in the chamber dimmed. A loud, sharp sound echoed from the central tower. "Alert! Unknown hostile signal detected." Screens appeared across the walls, showing flashes of static and images from 3 outer systems. There were ships, huge, black, and pulsing like they were alive. Swarms of smaller craft moved around them like insects. A voice filled the chamber, robotic and flat. "Null swarm detected. Defensive protocols active. Council zones threatened." Gasps, shouts, panic. The Andari ambassadors stood frozen. The Centauri turned to their advisors. The Velkin shouted for evacuation orders. Jace narrowed his eyes. He had seen this before in old Earth fleet files.
Ow.
Ships made of bone and metal. Weapons that burned through shields like paper. No diplomacy. No surrender. Only destruction. The Null Swarm had returned. It was an enemy older than the Council itself. A machine hive, part living, part tech, that once almost destroyed half the known galaxy. It was believed extinct, defeated in a great war before humanity ever joined the stars. But now it was back, and it was moving fast. Later that night, aboard the Crother Royal ship, Jace sat in the observation deck, watching the stars shift as they entered hyperspace. Thelixa sat beside him, quiet. She had removed part of her ceremonial armor. Underneath, her form was still strong, but softer, more graceful. Her eyes, small, black, yet deep, watched him carefully. "You regret marrying me now?" she asked, voice low. He turned to her, surprised. "No, never." But they laughed. They always do, till they need something. Alexa looked out the window. "My father fears this swarm. He fought it once. Lost half his sons. They don't die in war. They disappear. The swarm doesn't kill. It absorbs." Jace nodded, read the files, but Earths never fought them directly. "You might soon," she said. Jay turned to her, his voice soft. "Why didn't your father speak up today?" "He knew something, didn't he?" Felixa was silent for a long moment. Then she answered, "There's a reason I was kept hidden most of my life. Not because I was ugly, because I was dangerous." He frowned. "Dangerous how?" She opened her mouth, then stopped. "You'll know soon," she whispered. "If you still trust me then?" Jace reached out and took her hand. "I trust you now." A long silence passed between them. Then her eyes flared with a strange light. Just for a second, somewhere deep in space, a Null drone turned its head as if listening. The royal ship of the Crother glided through hyperspace, silent and strong like a shark in dark water. Inside the thick walls of living metal, Captain Jace Marin stood in a war chamber filled with deep red lights and humming machines. He was surrounded by tall, armored Crother warriors. Their yellow eyes glowed faintly in the dim room. At the head of the chamber stood King Vor, massive and terrifying. His shoulders were like boulders, and his crown was part of his skull grown from his body, not worn. He watched Jace carefully, as if weighing his soul. Beside Jace stood Princess Thalixa, still silent since their arrival. King Vor raised a hand. Everyone in the room fell quiet. "You saw the swarm," Vor said, voice like thunder behind a wall. "You know now what your marriage truly means." Jace stepped forward. "I thought it was about peace, an alliance." Vor shook his head. "No, it was about survival." There was silence. Then Vor continued. "You do not know what Thalixa is. Human. Few do. Even in my court, only the Bloodkeepers and ancient priests understand." Jace frowned. He looked at Thalixa, but she said nothing. The king turned to a circular table in the center of the room. With a wave of his hand, a glowing map, appeared a starfield showing dozens of systems. Red zones blinking across them. "This," Vor said, "was the line of defense we built after the last Null War. It held for 200 years. And now look." Pointed, 3 red zones were expanding rapidly. Jace studied the map. They're not just attacking randomly. They're moving toward the core. Toward the council. "Yes," Vor growled. "But they also moved toward her." Everyone turned to look at Thalixa. Jace stared. "Why her?" The king looked him straight in the eyes because she can speak to them. The Void Song Thi wore. Room emptied. Only Jace, Thalixa, and the king remained. Thalixa sat down slowly, her large claws resting in her lap. "You remember the old stories?" she said softly, "of how the Crother helped defeat the swarm?" Jace nodded. "You used a psychic weapon, a kind of mindbreaker." Thalixa shook her head. "Not a weapon, a person, a queen." Jace blinked. "What?" King Vor stepped closer. "Long ago, before the Crother became warriors, we were hive-bonded like the swarm. Our queens had a song inside them, a frequency, passed through blood, that let them touch minds." Jace's mouth went dry. "You're saying Thalixa has that power?" Vor nodded. "Yes, but the line was believed broken. The last known carrier died 5 centuries ago, until her birth." Thalixa looked down, almost ashamed. "My mother died giving birth to me. I was born with the mark of the Void Song. That's what they called it. A ripple in the mind. A song only the swarm can truly hear." Jace stepped back slightly. "You can control them?" She shook her head. "No, not yet. I can only feel them. Echoes, pain, hunger, rage. But if I train, if I awaken the full power, maybe I can stop them." The room was quiet for a long time. Finally, Jace said, "Why tell me now?" Vor answered, because you're her shield. You stood with her before knowing the truth. That makes you stronger than any army. And we need you both. A test of the mind in a deep chamber below the ship, Thalixa sat cross-legged inside a circle. Made of glowing stone, strange symbols lit up around her. Crother priests chanted in low tones from outside the circle. Jace watched from behind a thick glass wall. His fists were clenched. He didn't like this. She's not ready, he said. To the priest beside him, no one is ready, the priest answered, until they are. Inside the circle, Thalixa closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed. The room began to vibrate. Tiny particles of dust danced in the air. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Outside the ship, something stirred. The sensors screamed. Red alarms lit up across. The control deck, unidentified signal approaching fast. In space, a null drone the size of a small ship was rushing toward them. It had no engines, no light, just black metal and twitching limbs. But just as the ship's weapons turned to fire, Thalixa spoke. A single note escaped her lips. It was not loud, not angry, just soft and haunting like wind through bones. Drone froze. Everyone watched in silence as the null drone slowed, and then stopped. It hovered in space, then turned away from the ship. Self-destructed, the lights returned to normal. Jace stood frozen. She had done it. She had commanded. The mission plan in the command deck, Crother generals argued. She's too unstable. We should strike their fleet with full force. Council must be warned. But Jace stepped forward and slammed his fist on the table. No, they won't listen. They'll debate and delay. We don't have time. All heads turned to him. We need to go in, Jace said. Find their hive prime. Use Thalexa's power directly. Cut the swarm off at the mind. Gasps filled the room. You're mad, a general barked. She will die, another snapped. She is not your weapon, King Vor shouted. The room went silent, then Thalexa entered. I'll do it. Jace turned to her. Are you sure? It nodded. They laughed at me, called me a monster. But this is why I was born. She looked at her father. Let me finish the war, you couldn't. One last moment before the mission began, Jace and Thalixa stood in the observation room. Again. The stars were quiet. Jace touched her shoulder. You scared me back there. She smiled, her mandibles clicking slightly. And you should be afraid. What I hold inside me, it's old. It's older than words. But you control it, he said. 4. Now, he turned to her. We might not come back from this. She looked at him, and for a moment, her alien features softened. Then we die together. The Crother stealth dreadnought Shadowmaw flew silently through deep space, hidden from all scanners. Its body was shaped like a dark claw, built for silence and survival. It carried no banners, no lights. It's only a mission. Inside, the air was thick with tension. The ship's war room was dim and cold. Holograms of the null swarm filled the center table black, pulsing shapes moving like an infection through the stars. Around the table stood a mixed team of elite minds, Crother generals, human tacticians, and a few silent observers from allied races who had chosen to help in secret. At the center stood Captain Jace Marin and Princess Thalexa. A Crother general slammed his clawed fist on the table. We cannot send her into the hive. It's suicide. She is the only one who can reach the swarm's mind, Jace replied calmly. You saw what happened with the drone. If she gets close enough, she can stop them, another general growled. And if they stop her first? What if the swarm takes her mind instead? Thalixa stepped forward. Her voice was low, but powerful. I am not afraid of pain. I am not afraid of death. I am afraid of doing nothing while the galaxy burns. The room fell silent. She continued, We wait too long. We die. I enter the hive with or without your support, Jace nodded, and I'll be with her. The Crother King had not come on this mission, but he had given them his blessing and his most powerful ship. The swarm approaches hours later. A report came in from the edge of council space. Another system had fallen. No distress calls. No survivors. only a spreading blackness across the stars. On board. The Shadow Maw. Jace watched the new map updates with cold eyes. The swarm wasn't acting like an army. It was moving like a mind, a living strategy. "They're hurting us," he whispered. "What do you mean?" asked Alexa. Jace pointed at the star paths. "They're not just attacking randomly. They're cutting off travel routes, pushing all survivors toward the Council's homeworld. They're trying to trap them there." "Like prey," Thalixa said. Jace nodded. "They want to destroy everything at once. One big strike." A Crother scout entered the room quickly, his armored boots clicking. "We found it," he said. "The Hive Prime." Everyone leaned forward. "It's not in any system," the scout continued. "It's moving through dark space between stars. No light, no signals, but we tracked the energy pulses." He placed a red marker on the map. A black zone appeared. Hive Prime, a living fortress, bigger than a moon, made of bone, metal, hatred. Preparing for infiltration, the Shadow Maw moved fast, hiding its trail with a cloaking field. As they approached Hive Prime, the crew prepared. For a higher-risk infiltration, the plan was simple but deadly, Jace. Alexa and a small team would enter the Hive using stealth pods. Their goal: reach the central brain core of the Hive and allow Alexa to use her void song to break the swarms. Command network: if it worked, the swarm would fall apart. If it failed, no one would return. Alexa entered her chamber to meditate. She sat in silence, breathing slowly, training her mind. Around her floated tiny orbs that responded to her thoughts, spinning faster when her emotions rose. Suddenly one of the orbs shattered. She gasped. From deep in her mind, a voice echoed. It wasn't hers. It was old, dry, cold like space. "Daughter of the Queen, you cannot run from us." Alexa stood, trembling. The swarm was already speaking to her. Drop the team. Entered their drop pods, small black ships, no larger than a car. Each one launched silently, floating like seeds toward the massive shape of Hive Prime. The giant hive looked like a dead god in space, covered in twisted towers, breathing smoke into the void. As they drew closer, Jace saw that the hive was alive. Parts of it pulsed, moved, eyes opened and closed on its surface. And there were mouths, too many mouths chewing on energy and metal like it was food. "Pods locked in," said the pilot. "Brace for entry." The pod shot forward and pierced the hive's outer shell. Metal screamed. The world twisted. Then, silence. Inside the hive, the team climbed out into a dark corridor. The walls were warm and wet, covered in strange wires and muscle. The air smelled like blood and burning oil. "This place is wrong," whispered one of the soldiers. Jace held his weapon tight. "Stay close. Don't touch anything." Alexa looked pale, her eyes glowing faintly. "I feel them," she said. "They're watching." A deep rumble shook the walls. "They know we're here," she whispered. The first battle as they moved through the hive. Black creatures emerged from the walls, horrible shapes with blade arms and glowing red eyes. The swarm had sent its guards. Jace gave the signal. Engage. Lasers and plasma flew through the air. Screams echoed. The Crother soldiers fought like monsters, their strength tearing through enemies. Jace fired shot after shot, covering Alexa. But she stood still. She was humming. The song was not human. It's not alien. Something ancient. And the swarm froze. For just a moment, the creatures stopped moving. Their heads twitched. Some screamed and melted. Others simply collapsed. The hallway fell. Silent Dacha looked at her with awe. "You're getting stronger." She didn't answer. At the brain core, after hours of walking through tunnels filled with flesh and wire, they reached the heart of the hive, the brain-core. It was a huge room, shaped like a cathedral. At the center, floating in a field of black light, was the hive mind, a living brain the size of a house, covered in wires and dripping with black liquid. It pulsed slowly. Alexa stepped forward. "It's calling me," she whispered. Jay grabbed her hand. "Be careful," she turned. "You don't have to follow me." Yes, he said, I do. She smiled sadly and walked into the light. The mental battle as Thalixa approached the brain core, her body began to float.
Ow.
Her eyes turned fully black. Hive spoke again. You are one of us. No, she said. I am Crother. You are Song. You are Queen. I am myself. Images flashed in her mind, her mother dying, her father weeping, the mocking voices of the council. Then the Hive offered her power. Rule with us. End the pain. Join the true mind. Jace saw her shaking. He ran toward her with Alexa. You're stronger than them. Her eyes opened, glowing like fire, and then she sang the Void Song. It was beautiful and terrifying. A sound that made even Jace fall to his knees. The walls of the Hive shook. The brain core screamed. The swarm started tearing itself apart. Escape the Hive was collapsing. Explosions ripped through the tunnels. Fires burned in every direction. Back. To the pods, Jace shouted. Thalixa stumbled, weak but alive. Jace lifted her over his shoulder. The team ran through the dying Hive, dodging falling walls and attacking swarm creatures that were now broken, confused. Leaderless, lost, they made it to the pod and launched just as the Hive Prime began to fold in on itself from space. It looked like a black sun being eaten from the inside, and then it vanished. His stars had never looked brighter. From the windows of the Crother Dreadnought Shadowmaw, Captain Jace Marin stared out in silence. The Hive Prime was gone, destroyed from within. The swarm was broken. Across the galaxy, thousands of enemy ships had gone still or crashed into the void. Some had even turned on each other, as if confused by their own existence. But Jace didn't feel like celebrating. He turned to the medical bay, where Princess Thalixa lay on a healing bed. Her breathing was slow. Her body was weak. Using the Void Song had drained her, nearly killed her. Her mind had gone so deep into the Hive that it took hours to pull her back. Even now, she was still unconscious. Jace sat beside her and held her hand. You saved them all, he whispered. They mocked you. They called you a monster, and you saved them anyway. The door slid open behind him. General Vernax, a Crother warrior with a large scar over his eye, entered slowly. His armor was dark, but his face was calm. The swarm is dying, Vernax said. Many planets report their skies are clear again. The council has called a grand assembly. Jace didn't look up. And what do they want? To honor her, Varnax said, and to question her. Jace stood, anger rising. Question? Her, after all this? Varnax gave a slow nod. They fear her, Jace. The Void Song is not a weapon they understand, and power they don't understand. They always try to control. The councils returned 3 days later. The Galactic Council gathered at the Grand Chamber on the planet Aliros, a floating world made of crystal towers and golden bridges that hung above clouds. Leaders from dozens of species were present. Humans, Crother, Zalari, Dronok, and others. The chamber was a giant circle of seats around a central platform. Jace stood proudly beside Thalixa, who had recovered enough to walk again. Her long robes flowed behind her, and her crown a new one made. Of star metal, and bone rested on her head, whispers filled the air as she entered. Some in awe, others in fear. A human ambassador stood. Let the record show we welcome the heroes who destroyed Hive Prime. Let us thank the Void Singer. A few clapped. Others remained still. Then a Zellery noble stood. His skin was glassy and pale blue, but let the records also show her power nearly destroyed us. The swarm listened to her. A Dronic elder added, we must ensure her powers are sealed or controlled, for the safety of all. Adelixa stepped forward, her voice calm. You fear me because I touched the darkness and came back, but I didn't bring it with me.
I ended.
It murmurs rose again. Jace raised his voice. She didn't ask for this power. She used it to save you, and now you want to chain her. An older human admiral stood. Captain Marin, we owe you much, but understand this is about survival. We cannot risk another war. Jace laughed bitterly. So now you want to lock up the only person who ended it? Crother Priest finally spoke. The void song is not a curse. It is a gift from the ancestors. If used in balance, it can protect the galaxy. Projected, the swarm may one day rise again. But it was clear the council was split. Some wanted to celebrate Thalexa. Others wanted to control her, and a few wanted her dead. The assassins in the garden that night. On the palace grounds of Aliros, Thalexa walked alone among the floating gardens. Bright plants shimmered in the air, glowing with starlight. She stopped near a pond made of liquid crystal, reflection quiet beneath her. She sensed it before it happened. The silence shifted. 3 shadows stepped from the darkness, dressed in council black. Assassins, fast, trained, silent. Thalexa didn't scream. She sang. A single note echoed across the garden. The shadows screamed and fell, clutching their heads. But then a 4th figure emerged, tall, familiar Jay, or someone who looked like him. Her heart stopped. Jace, the figure, smirked. His eyes glowed silver. You really believed he was still alive? Thalexa froze. What do you mean? The figure stepped closer. The council doesn't care about peace, or you, or even the swarm. They wanted the void song all along. Want to use it to build their own hive, their own army? He threw something at her feet, a broken communicator. It was Jace's, covered in blood. Thalexa screamed, not in fear but rage. And then she changed, the awakened queen of power, older. Then the stars burst out from within her. The ground shook, air cracked. Her voice roared across the sky, not a song of peace, but a command. The assassin Jace fell to his knees, shaking. Thalexa's eyes glowed bright silver. Her body shimmered with energy. She was no longer a princess. She was a queen. From the shadows, real Jace stumbled into the clearing, wounded but alive. He had escaped from a prison chamber beneath the palace, where corrupt members of the council had tried to silence him. He saw the leaks shining like a sun. And she saw him, their bond unbroken. She ran to him, held him. He smiled weakly. They tried to turn you into a weapon, he said. But they forgot you're also a shield. She helped him up. Let's show them what happens when they corner a queen. The rise of a new order at dawn. Thalexa stood before the council again, this time not as a guest, but as a judge. With her void song, she exposed the traitors hiding among the council, the ones who had planned her murder, and the ones who tried to copy her powers through dark experiments. Every lie was revealed. The council was shaken. But before they could argue, Thalexa made her choice. I will not be your puppet. I will not be your prisoner. I am the last of the Void Singers. And from this day forward, I answer to no council. A few tried to protest, but then the Crother King appeared behind her, with an army of his finest. We stand with the queen, he said, and any who challenge her will answer to us. Jay stepped beside her, sword in hand. The humans do too. In that moment, a new alliance was born, not built on fear, but on respect. The galaxy was quiet. The Great War was over. The swarm had been destroyed. The traitors within the Galactic Council were exposed. Thalexa, once mocked for her bloodline and feared for her power, had risen as a queen beyond borders. But peace, peace was never simple. Inside the new capital on Virnos, a neutral space station orbiting a dead star, a new kind of council was forming, not built on fear or politics, but unity. For the first time in centuries, humans, Crother, and other alien races gathered not to argue, but to build. Thalexa and Jace stood on the central balcony, overlooking the grand assembly below. You should be down there, Jace said softly. They built all of this because of you. Thalexa smiled, her eyes calm but sad. I didn't destroy the hive alone. You were with me, and so were many others, some who never made it back. She turned and walked to the window. The stars beyond. It were different now, less angry, more hopeful. They're afraid again, she said. This time not of the swarm, but of the silence. Jace frowned. What do you mean? She looked at him. The hive was ancient, older than our records. What if it wasn't the first? What if it was just one voice in a greater darkness? Jace stepped closer. You think something else is out there? She nodded slowly. I think the song isn't finished. I can still hear echoes. The rebirth of the song. Phalexa spent her days helping form the United Accord, a new system of peacekeeping and shared technology between civilizations. Old hatreds were set aside for now. She also taught, not war, but the song she founded, the first Void Song Temple, where those sensitive to sound and energy could train. Not all had her strength. Some, especially children, showed signs of the gift. The songs weren't only for destruction. They could heal, calm storms, fix broken systems, even grow food faster on barren planets. Jace often watched her train them. He loved the way her voice softened around the young. She had once been a weapon. Now she was a teacher, a protector. Still, every night she sat quietly, listening to the stars, waiting a signal in the dark. One cycle later, mining stations stopped sending signals. All in the same sector, the Veil Rift. It was a region of space filled with broken moons, shattered worlds, and black storms. Long ago, it had been called cursed. Abandoned after the first silence, war, and ancient conflict, no one remembered clearly. Now, something was stirring again. Jay stood in the war room watching the map flicker. 3 disappearances in 1 moon cycle, he said. Same pattern as the swarm's early attacks. Phalexa walked in behind him. It's not the swarm, she said. He looked at her. Then what is it? Her face was pale. A new voice. Journey to the Veltha United Accord sent its best. A fleet of ships, scientists, warriors, and Void Song acolytes. At the lead was the royal flagship, the Starborn Crown. Jace was now Admiral Marin. Phalexa had no official title anymore. I'd given up the throne to remain free. But to the people, she was still Queen of the Song. As they entered the Veil Rift, strange things happened. Time slowed. Dreams became real. Machines stopped working. And people heard whispers, not voices, but emotions. Grief, hunger, rage. Phalexa stood at the front of the ship. She sang a low hum, and the fog cleared slightly. Her song gave the crew direction. Something is calling us, she whispered. And it wasn't just her. Some of the younger Void Singers began humming in their sleep. Some cried. Some became afraid of light. At the center of the rift they found a black pyramid floating in space, silent, empty, dead, and yet very much alive. No records mentioned it. It was not swarm. It's technology. It was older. The Song of Shadow. Phalexa entered the pyramid with a small team. Jace went with her, of course. Inside, the walls were smooth and mirrored. They reflected not just faces, but memories. Jace saw himself as a boy, lost, alone. Phalexa saw her mother's death again. Then, the mirrors cracked. From the cracks came shadows, thin, tall beings with no mouths, no eyes, just presence. They didn't attack. They simply stood and whispered. Inside their minds, Phalexa stepped forward and sang. Not a battle song, a song of peace. The shadows paused, and then they answered. Their voices were not made of sound. She heard them clearly. We are the Forgotten Choir. We sang the first song. We kept the balance until they silenced us. Jace looked confused. Who silenced you? The answer came like thunder. The swarm. The first song, the choir revealed the truth. Long ago, before galaxies even formed, there were beings who sang to the stars. Their songs shaped matter, time, and even thought. They kept life balanced across space, but then a splinter group broke away. They believed in control, not harmony. They sang a different song, a hungry song. That song became the swarm, the choir, fought it, and lost. Now only a few remained, and they had hidden in the pyramid, waiting for someone who could sing both light and shadow. Someone like Phalexa. You carry both, they said. The hive inside you, the voice of balance. You can finish the song or destroy it forever. Phalexa's heart beat fast. You want me to choose? They nodded. Light brings peace. A shadow brings strength, but balance brings truth. Final choice outside, the veil rift grew unstable. More ships were failing. Some were being pulled into void pockets, mini black holes, created by leftover swarm energy. The Accord fleet was in danger. Felixa knew what had to be done. She returned to the Starborn Crown, called every ship. This will be the last song. She said, if I succeed, the veil will become calm. The balance will return. If I fail, leave. Do not come back. Jace grabbed her hand. You're not doing this alone. She shook her head. You're not the shield this time. I am. They kissed once soft, long, and full of every word they hadn't said yet. Then she entered the pyramid once more. The last song, the Lexa, stood in the heart of the pyramid. The shadows circled her, and she began to sing. Not just light, not just shadow, but both. The song was old, older than memory. It vibrated across dimensions, across time. Every ship in the fleet heard it. Every void singer across the galaxy felt it. Even the stars seemed to glow. Brighter, and then silence. The rift closed. The pyramid vanished. And Thalixa was gone. Legacy among the stars, Jace searched for her for years. But she was nowhere. No remains. No signal, only echoes. Still, the galaxy changed. The United Accord became stronger, more united. The Voidsong Temple grew, and peace, true peace, lasted longer than any historian thought possible. Children were told stories of the queen who sang the stars. Some said she became one with the song. Others believed she was still watching, waiting for when the galaxy needed her. Again, Jace, now older and grayer, often stood by the window of the academy she built. And sometimes, just sometimes, he could still hear her voice in the stars, soft, strong, eternal.